Jam. Cooler and a flyer.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to A1 Forever Sports, the show that's cooler and flyer too, man. We definitely always love to keep, different topics coming up around here. And I got a few, heavy hitters coming in with me to, talk some sports. We also have a newcomer as well. So we're going to get to that. But first and foremost, of course, you got to be generational because it's always time to be. And don't you settle for less because you can always have more with the vision. So with that in mind, we have 10 players. None of us chose them now. None of us chose them, but they were chosen for us. And we're going to discuss them today and discuss what era would be some of the best eras that these players could have played in, produced in, and flourished in. So first and foremost, man, we're gonna go around the bend, man. Smooth Smitty, holla at the people, man.
Hey, what's up, man? Y'all know who it is, man. Smitty Sports Machine. Man, this is a great topic, man. We just came up with this thing like we do the pop-up show. It just pops in our head. And me and Chris were having a conversation, man. I said, Chris, you know what, man? What about this guy? Could he play in any era? And then it just kept going on and on. And this is how we get our ideas because we talk every day. So these video ideas, they just keep popping up and keep coming. So we hope y'all enjoy this topic, man, because I know I will. But hey, we'll see.
T Will, let them know what it do.
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here and just ready to have a good discussion with these gentlemen. I am Terry. I am a member of the One Time for the Fan podcast. You can go to One Time for the Fan on YouTube. I am also a member of my own podcast, which is for my ATL Sports One on YouTube as well. So please like and subscribe as A1 is the greatest, and
Hey, man, I appreciate that.
Mr. Smitty 11K is the greatest. And I understand we have an up and comer that stepped in the room. So without further ado, sir, tell us who you are and tell us about you. Let's get to it.
All right, I'm Jordan. I run Old Legacy, founder, owner of Old Legacy. We started on Facebook about 2017. Now we've grown to a little over 90,000 followers in total. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. That's new, and YouTube. Just trying to get into YouTube, and that's where I meet these gentlemen. So let's get it.
Yeah, man.
Welcome.
Yeah, man. Me and Jordan, we got a little past history because at the time it was called a different name, but that's why I met Jordan actually. And I was the guy who was holding down the Falcons at one point in time. I was the only guy holding down the Falcons for a couple of years actually, and everything. I mean, he had a cool thing going on, but we had to come up with hashtag names and everything. And my hashtag name was Captain Falcon. So hey, I wore that proudly.
Good.
So
look,
guys, man,
being the only one that's all they needed, Chris. I know you.
Yeah, man, it was me, man.
Everybody else. How about that?
It was me holding down the shield, man, holding down the shield.
That's all we needed.
But yeah, man. Okay, so I'm about to read off, some numbers from a guy, and then we're gonna talk about him and see what kind of era he could have played in before I just released the name. So this man has over 420 touchdowns, 252 interceptions. He's a Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. I don't want to give away too many of his numbers because I feel like some of these older cats are already on it. You already know what I'm talking about. So
yeah, you trying to talk about me on the sly?
Nah, never that, brother. Nothing but love. Nothing but love. But the gentleman that I'm speaking of is Mr. Dan Marino. Now, we already know, again, like I just said, Hall of Famer right here, Hall of Fame career. This guy could do wonders with the football as soon as he said hike. Now, I just want to know you guys' opinions, man. Like, I know it was back in 1984. He set all those records, too, coming in. He had a Hall of Fame career. Didn't necessarily win the big one, but at the end of the day, just the talent itself is Dan Marino. What other eras could Dan Marino possibly play in? Well, I'm gonna start with you, Smitty. We're gonna go around.
He's one of those guys. He could have played in any era, man. You talk about a guy with a rocket arm that a lot of quarterbacks today remind me of. Justin Herbert is one.
Mhm.
Dan Marino, he had pinpoint accuracy. He can make any throw on the field, and his deep ball, man, it would just whistle out his hand. But in today's era, man, I think would probably be the best because it's a passing league. The defensive backs can't touch anybody. If they do,
Mm.
so it's a penalty. So he had, and y'all remember Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, the Dupe Mark brothers. Those are his running mates. They could play in this area as well because they had speed, good hands. But Dan Marino in today's game, I think he could pass for 67,000 yards. He would make it seem like the Arena League, because he was ahead of his time. 5,000 yards. I think it was his second year in the league. You may never see that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he could play in any league, in any era, especially this one.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Let's look at some of these numbers too, man. What you got for him, T. Will?
I agree with Smitty. First and foremost, I think he would dominate because you can't touch the quarterback now, right? Not only that, I think Marino might have played for 25. How long did he play? Did he play for 20? How long did he play? He played a long
17
time.
years, I think.
Yeah.
He might have played 25 years with today's rules because you couldn't touch him. Understand, from 82, he got mauled. Okay, that was back when you could drop a quarterback, drop him on his shoulder. You could close, you could do just about anything. Okay. And he played for 17 years of that. You put this guy, and he not only did he have a release, he was quick with it. He could identify where he wanted to go and get it there. So I think he would be better suited for today's game than the 80s because of the rules that protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
That's just me. Jordan, how do you feel about it? What are your thoughts?
You know, I think my belief is that I think every player in NFL history can play in a different era. Let me get started before we get into every single individual player.
Yeah.
I think when people are comparing players of different eras, saying, "Oh, this player can't play in this specific era," they're not taking into account if they were raised and grew up in that era. Like you look at, take Jim Brown for example, and place him in today's game. That means he gets the weight rooms, he gets the health regimens, he gets to grow up in today's society where it's easier to access certain things than other players. So getting into Dan Marino, my thought process with each of these players is if you took them from their playing days in the 80s and 90s for Dan Marino's sake and then placed them in today's game, I agree with you both. He's got one of the strongest arms in NFL history. He's got amazing accuracy for his arm strength. I'm a believer that I think the current day of safeties is one of the worst in the last 50, 60 years. And I think he would easily pick apart them. I have a spreadsheet that I've made calculating what players of different eras would look like, statistically speaking, if they played in today's game. And Marino, he didn't get to 6,000 yards, but he got really close to it. So I do think he definitely could. He would probably been more efficient in today's era, and I definitely think he would have dominated in today's game.
And could you imagine if he played in his era, Dan Marino and Patrick Mahomes?
That Mahomes, I was already saying, but I was just about to say that would be
and if you think about it, you could say Patrick Mahomes is the modern day Dan Marino because they have pretty much the same build. He has high caliber arm strength as well. And he's one of those guys, if he gets on track, and you saw it, he threw for 55 touchdowns in his second year. So come on. I mean, Patrick Mahomes could be the modern day Dan Marino. And I think if anybody could break it to 6,000, even though I think it'll be hard. Patrick Mahomes can do it with the right receivers because you see what he had when he had Tyreek Hill. And I just found out the other day they tried to get Mike Evans. Just imagine that. So
Yep.
if he gets another high caliber receiver, I could see him. He probably could do it at Xavier Worthy. I could see him going for 6,000.
Well, can you imagine Dan Marino and Tyreek Hill? Holy cheese ball!
Oh no, it'll be like a game.
Bro,
be like game
that
Tecmo
right
Bowl.
there. Pitch and catch for real.
Bro, I mean, you can't stop it. You got Waddle, but you got the cheetah. Arguably, you can't outthrow the cheetah. You can't outthrow him. You just can't, right? You put that in Dan Marino's hand. I think Dan might throw for 6,500 yards in today's season. Yeah. And you give him a running game? Nah, bro. Oh my god.
What Randy Moss said, just chunk it up there, dog. That's all you had to do.
Chunk it up there, dog. And then we're talking about a guy that was known for his quick release too. And man, you wouldn't hardly be able to get to him. It's different rules that protects the quarterback. And man, Dan Marino will be dropping back and he'll be letting it fly all the time.
Man.
Man, he wouldn't even have to really lead the pocket like that.
When I was scouting players, I scout players every single draft. Dan Marino is the quickest release I've ever seen on film.
Yes.
That's going back to the 50s. When I was looking at CJ Stroud, I'm an avid hater of CJ Stroud because he went to Ohio State. But when he was coming out, I said his release is the closest to Dan Marino's I've ever seen. Marino's was incomparable. I couldn't ever find someone with that quick release. It was like he wasn't even winding up. Right. And that's kind of what I see with CJ Stroud. So look at how efficient Stroud was last year. Imagine Marino for 20 years, 25 years doing that.
Yeah.
He'd break every record known to man. Like, I mean, again.
How many MVPs do you think Dan Marino would get?
If he played with Patrick Mahomes, I think they'll be half and half. Because, like I said, both of them have the right weapons. It'll be a two-man show. And see, this is a reason. It's a reason why eras are the way they are, because there's always going to be one guy in this era that's just at the top of the pack. It's just a given.
Got a little pushback right here. Says the guys in the late 50s and 60s couldn't play in today's game. Too big and fast. Evolution, folks.
Well, to Jordan's point, and I think it's a good one. They didn't have access to today's society. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the weights advanced. They didn't have technology advancements. They didn't have all these bells and whistles. So you could argue, right, that given the same scenarios, you would produce the same results. And that argument holds true for for football and basketball. Baseball, not so much. Because in baseball, the emphasis is on velocity now. And that's a totally different approach. But I agree, football, you got the same weights, you got the same meals, you got the same trainers. Why not? Right? The only difference is, I mean, they smoked in the 50s. They're probably not going to do that now. So,
Yeah, Lynn Dawson used to be on the sideline smoking a whole pack of cigarettes.
Man, listen. I'm saying health would be definitely different.
Yeah.
You can breathe more. Breathe more.
Yeah.
All right, guys. About to move on here in a second, unless anyone else has anything else they want to add about Deputy Dan here.
No.
All right. So I'm about to move on to the next gentleman. All right. This guy's a Hall of Famer as well. And again, guys, I just want to make it clear for everybody who may have came in a little later. These were just random pick. We didn't pick none of these players. These players were picked for us. I don't know. Maybe we'll turn this into a series. We'll see what happens. But either way it goes, this player is a Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, and is on the Hall of Fame All-2000s team. Anybody scratching their head? They kind of trying to figure it out.
Is
Well,
that
it's
Peyton?
all good.
Is that Peyton?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
Absolutely not, sir. No,
uh,
absolutely not.
Repeat those accolades again.
Okay. Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro
Mhm.
Bowler, 4-time All Pro, All 2000s team Hall of Famer, 2008 Allen Page Award winner,
that's a defensive back.
the
Are we
defensive
talking
player.
about?
Yeah.
Is that Darrell Revis?
No, sir. It
Are
is
we talking
not
about Revis?
Darrell
I'm just gonna
Revis.
stop guessing. I'm just gonna stop guessing. So go ahead.
No, you that one slipped my mind. Now I don't know which one that is. You gonna just throw it on out there?
Yeah, just throw it out
All
there.
right. No problem. No problem. No problem. It is Mr. Brian
Dog,
Dawkins.
B dog. Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
Now I'm surprised about you, Mr. Philly.
Well,
Yes,
hey,
sir, man.
you
Brian
put
Dawkins.
the
I'm talking
side of
about
it
I
for
didn't.
guy, 37 interceptions. So he ran 2 back for a touchdown. Of course, absolutely mauler type of a player back there. One of the best safeties to ever do it. Played most of his career in Philly, and then I know he ended it in Denver, but still just made an impact wherever he went. So, man, this guy right here, that's another guy who I feel like Brian Dawkins, he could have played definitely in the 80s, definitely in the 70s, saying one of those guys, because he'll be free to just go
Throwback
hit
player.
somebody. Yeah, the
Throwback
way he
player.
played, he would absolutely flourish in different in the earlier eras just because the rules were different. He was an absolute missile. And we know a little bit about it just because how he did Algie Crumpler, but we don't want to talk about that no more. That thing, we don't want to talk about that no more.
We'll let Mr. Philly go next. 'Cause I
Yeah,
want to hear
yes.
his
Yeah,
thought.
this is one of your guys right here.
So I will say I'm gonna start off by saying I don't think Brian Dawkins could have played well in today's NFL.
I agree.
I think when it comes to, I mean, he was a hard hitting safety, one of the hardest hitting safeties of all time. I don't know how, and I think that's the issue with safeties in general today in today's NFL. That's why there aren't very many very good safeties in the NFL. So, I agree. I think he could have played. Think he could have played in the 90s. Obviously, he did for a little bit. 80s, definitely, and any time before that. Brian Dawkins, he could have hit as hard as anyone, and that was how good he was. He was good because of his ability to stop the run, because of hitting well, to be hitting guys when they're streaking down the middle of the field like Alge Crumpler. But I don't think it would translate well to today's game. No.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Defensive receivers. I don't know how they came up with that, but football is football. Just like that sack Grady Jerry got on Tom Brady a couple years ago. That was some bull crap. But Brian Dawkins, I think he played in the perfect era, and I'm talking about 2000s, maybe 90s. He could have made it in the 80s, 70s, and 80s as well. But like you said, Jordan, I just think today's game, he would probably get penalized every other play because he was really a linebacker at the safety position, and that's just how he played.
Right. Terry, what you think about Dawkins?
Guys, every guy on this list is probably the top one of the 1%, right? And what keeps going back through my mind is what Jordan said. Well, if they were raised in this era, then they would be groomed in this era, then they would adapt, right? Well, I'm not going to say he couldn't play in this era. Now, would he be the Superman that he was? Probably not, right? Probably not. But I'm not going to say he couldn't play, because one thing about B-Doc, if you've ever heard him talk, this man can do anything. He could be a motivational speaker. He's a guy that just gets you fired up, right? So I got to believe he could play. Now, would he dominate to the extent
He
that
could play. He could play, but his playing style, the
right? I
way
Yeah,
the
don't.
game is
playing
called today,
style.
He
like we said,
definitely
like we said before, you
yeah.
can't touch the
Throwing from
receivers. If they run over the middle and he just
right,
bump them, he gonna get flagged.
man.
He would probably be
And
he would probably
Dawkins
be one.
is not a bumper. He's a thumper. So it's just like you ain't gonna get no bump. He's gonna hit you. So it just,
Right.
And perfect example. Perfect example. Ronnie Lott and Brian Dawkins probably would be two of the most hated players
oh man.
in today's area if they played.
Ronnie Lott definitely couldn't play. And Ronnie
Could you
Lott,
imagine Jack Tatum today? Come on now.
not. But he'd be
You
kicked
know-
out of every game. But Ronnie Lott, right? You guys know the story of what happened with his pinky?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he got it
absolutely.
amputated just to play in the championship game.
All right. The man wants to play
You
football.
know what I mean? So I mean, if you'll do that to yourself, there's no telling what you'll do to me. I don't. I agree. I don't think now. That's the one thing I agree, and I know Ronnie's not on the list, but I don't think Ronnie could play because Ronnie would kill somebody.
See,
Ronnie don't care about the-
on the car ride here, I was thinking of players that could play in different eras, and I was thinking to myself, I think Ronnie Lott is the one defensive player that if you drag and drop into every single decade in the history of the game, I think he would have been able to play
He could.
at an all-pro
I agree.
level
I
because
agree,
of
because
his coverage ability. He was so good in
Bingo.
coverage, and he could
there it
be.
is.
He was an all-pro corner. He was Pro
Yep.
Bowler at every single position in the secondary. So,
Bingo.
Right.
I mean, he could play at a great level at corner, free safety, strong safety. And then it was just an added part of his game how hard he could hit. And he was one of the hardest hitting safeties of all time.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was a corner before a safety, so
I honestly, I think he'd get kicked out of every game. If Ronnie Lott was playing in today's league, all right, it's halftime. Ronnie, you ready? You ready? You hit 3 people. You ready? All right, let's go.
now he would get fined a lot. I do agree with
Ronnie
that.
gonna get a fine or two, but he'll be worth it.
He'll be playing for half a check every game
Man,
because he would get
I'm trying
fined
to
so
tell you.
much.
Ronnie would lay folks out, man. Ronnie would. Let me tell you something. Hey, and you can see this a lot, like when you look at the old 49ers game, you can see guys looking for Ronnie. You can see guys literally going up, like, where is he? Where, you know what I mean? No, I mean he would excel. He had great coverage skills, but I think he'd get kicked out half the game, but that's just my opinion. Anyway,
I got something for you though. This next guy, man, listen to this. Hall of Famer, once again. So we got another Hall of Famer. 10-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Anybody got an idea?
Peyton Manning or Lawrence Taylor?
I'm about to say which one, man. You can't have both.
I'm gonna go LT.
Okay. Anybody else LT? Anybody else Peyton Manning? Anybody else? Anybody different?
I think it's Peyton.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Peyton Manning too.
Well. I guess on the flip of a coin, luck of a draw, whatever they want to call it. This is Mr. Lawrence Taylor.
Yes.
LT.
Love it.
142 sacks.
Man.
This guy could play in any era. I'm just gonna say it. Gonna say it.
Any era. Yeah.
He revolutionized the linebacker. He changed it. He changed it forever, the linebacker position. So yeah, I think, and in the future, like in any era, I agree. I think LT could dominate in any era. Definitely.
Man, can you imagine LT getting the weight regimen and everything, the right amount of sleep, everything, just somebody on them, just to take care of business, and he getting all the technology that's in 2024, and he comes out there and is boy. I tell you one thing, the New York Giants would love to have him right now. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, that's why they need to change the rules about the quarterback. I hate when they did about how you got hit the quarterback a certain way. Back then, you could knock the quarterback block off. If you remember Leonard Marshall, the way he hit Joe Montana and messed his elbow up. You remember Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg. It's part of the game, man. The hits are part of the game. So I mean, don't just change the game up because you want to see more points on the board. Football is football. So yeah, it would be tough for him to play in this era because of the penalties they called on the quarterback, but he can play this era. But again, he would probably get fined a lot too because of the way he played the game. But he could play in any era, dating all the way back to the 30s if he wanted to.
He'd have to build it into his salary.
Yeah. just like Raymond Collins just said, man, LT probably get fined too. He gonna get some fines, but my thing is just ability. That ability can go in any era, or even earlier than him, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of schemes, I mean, back in the 90s was where you really saw the transition of defensive schemes. But putting LT in today's game and having him opposite of some of these really good edge rushers in the NFL. I mean, even if you drag and drop him, put him in the Giants of today's game. I mean, they already got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns now. You put him on the opposite side. How are you going to block him? I mean,
you got Dexter Lawrence in the middle with the size. So he was on today's Giant. He would probably get 30 sacks, man.
Can you imagine the contract for LT, y'all? Can y'all imagine what the contract would be in today for having to pay for LT?
Probably
and them 142 sacks, like he's still going to get all that, and he probably end up getting more. But I'm just saying, like all that still coming with him. Like
he probably be about $40 million range. He'd be the best defensive player in the league easily.
He would be.
I mean, I even though Reggie White played on the Eagles, I think Reggie White is the second greatest defensive player ever. I do think Lawrence Taylor is the best defensive player ever. I mean, he's been able to drop back in the coverage multiple times in his career, even though he's one of the greatest, arguably the greatest edge rusher in NFL history. So being able to pop back in coverage, that's a scary sight for a big guy like Lawrence Taylor.
Better than Ray Lewis? You think Reggie White better than Ray Lewis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Reggie was different though. You gotta imagine, like,
back
then,
you
gotta think about it back then.
Who can throw an offensive line over with one hand.
Right. So, he was good his whole career.
And Bruce Smith played longer, even though Bruce Smith had the most sacks. He played longer. Had LT played another 3-4 years, he probably would have close to 200 sacks as well.
And even during the strike shortened season in '87, Reggie White still had 20 sacks in a strike shortened season. Imagine that nowadays. And with his hump move that he would do, I think it would teach a lot of current players how to do it better. So it might end up creating more sacks across the league because he's going to share his knowledge with everyone, because I don't think anyone in NFL history has been able to replicate that move.
The one thing about Ray Lewis that I would say, in my humble opinion, Ray Lewis is probably the smartest defender to ever play, ever. And I say that because he played against Peyton and nobody else could figure Peyton out. And Ray Lewis and the Ravens did, right? Yep. Ray would baptize anybody that went over that middle. He could cover anybody. So no disrespect to Mr. Reggie White. He was a great one, but I don't know, because
it's subjective, because you're still talking about two of the greats that's ever hit the gridiron. So so it's still subjective, but can't even lie, man. What you got?
That the Dixon way at the bottom. He says LT, Reggie White, Aaron Donald, three best I've seen. I'm gonna throw a curveball, and I was gonna put this on my page later today. There's one guy that doesn't get enough credit that I would put up against Aaron Donald, and that's JJ Watt. When he was in his prime and he was one of the key defensive players in this league, I would put JJ Watt up against anybody. Yeah, he talk about a guy that was a former tight end. Former tight end came in the league as a defensive end and dominated. So I'm gonna put that on the page a little later to see what kind of votes I can get on that and what kind of comments. But those two in the league, those two in their prime in the league at the same time would be insane. By the time Aaron Donald got here, well, they was in the league at the same time, but I think JJ Watt, his injury history hurt his career
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though he's a Hall of Fame player, if he stays healthy a lot more than he does, I could see him as one of the top 5 defensive players of all time.
The only reason I'm still shouting Ray Lewis is because not only did Ray affect his play, his entire defense fed off of him. And his defense was good for decades, not a few years, decades.
Yeah.
Top 5, top 10 decades. And that is a lot of Ray Lewis. That is so, I'm a fan, whatever. So,
and I feel like the Falcons can take some knowledge off of that, because they had an all-world linebacker and they always put eardresses around him. They put Ed Reed, great cornerbacks.
Yep.
So he always had good players around him, and that a lot of, and that's thanks to my boy Isaac Newsom, one of the best GMs of all time.
Ever. Agreed. But what I'm saying, they prepared, like, if you look at that Ravens defense collectively, 10-year period, probably one of the best ever. So, but I mean, again, look, these are subjective. LT was definitely great. Reggie was definitely great. Aaron Donald is, in my humble opinion, the best nose tackle to ever play the game. I don't know how other people feel about it, but it's that way to me. So you can't go.
Well, fellas, I'll tell you one thing. We're going to switch over from the defensive side and head back to the offensive side with this one. Now, he's not a Hall of Famer, but some people would say it's subjective. 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. This man right now, he has 90 touchdowns in his career. That's all I'm going to give you
right now.
He's still playing right now.
Ooh.
Derrick Henry? Is it Derrick Henry?
Indeed, it is Mr. Derrick Henry.
This is the closest comparison to Jim Brown I've ever seen. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. When I see Derrick Henry run, Jim Brown is the first thing comes to my mind. That stiff arm, that power, and when he gets going, he's a locomotive. You can't bring him down.
No, you cannot.
So, Derrick Henry, any era that's ever been invented, he can play in any era, era. Because I mean, if you're playing one of the toughest positions to me to play that doesn't last long, and he's done it as long as he has, I mean, that's impressive, man. So I would, Derrick Henry any era. I don't care if it's a future era. He just that dominant. Then a guy 200, he's about 250, running a 4.4
for like 40. A 4.4. Mm-hmm. Going down the hill.
Yeah,
I mean, hill.
Go ahead, George. Go ahead.
Okay. Another player we're on the ride here. I was thinking of 3 running backs who really could play in every single era. Those 3 being Derrick Henry, Bo Jackson, and Jim Brown. I think all 3 of them, it's their size, their speed. They could throw anyone around. They could juke around people. They could do anything. And I think that's why they can play in any era. And Derrick Henry, I mean, he's a monster. It's crazy how someone as big as him can be so fast, especially when he's really going. I mean, I had Derrick Henry a couple years ago in fantasy, and I never really watched Derrick Henry for specific games. But when I did, I watched specific snaps, and I thought, wow, when he gets an open hole, nobody can tackle him, and nobody can catch him either. So I can imagine. I don't think any defensive player could catch up to him with being able to bring him to the ground. So you take Deion Sanders, for example. If he's playing in the 90s against Deion, Deion's going to catch up to him, but is Deion going to bring him down? I don't know.
Right.
That's
probably not.
Right. That's a good thing. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You would have to. Derrick Henry would have to be game tackle in every era.
Yes,
It doesn't matter. And honestly, you think about it, if he played in the 70s and the 80s, they'll be trying to hurt Derrick Henry. Seriously,
probably.
because they'll be so afraid of him.
Yeah,
Like can you imagine uh um a matchup to where you got Derrick Henry on one side and you got Earl Campbell on the other side trying to see
that,
which back is
that
going to wear down the next defense.
it's funny you say that, Chris, because Derek reminds me of Earl Campbell just a little bit, right? Earl, first of all, Earl was huge, but
Yeah.
Earl ran with speed and there was poetry to his movement. And Earl was the one guy as early as I can remember that he wouldn't go out of bounds, right? So he's running
Mhm.
for the first down. He's at the first down marker. Oh no, I'm not going out of bounds. I'm gonna take a couple of guys with me, and he would just deliver punishment. And to me, Derrick Henry is a little bit old school in that way because he doesn't necessarily go out of bounds if he doesn't have to. Like if he's got the first down and it's 4 or 5 more yards to get, he's going to administer some justice to whatever poor unlucky defensive back is in his path. I let me tell you something. I'm old school that way. I hate to see running backs run out of bounds after like I love to see somebody say, "No, let me, you know what? Let me hit you in the chest right quick and let you know it's going to be a long day." So yeah,
Now,
I agree. I think he could play in any era. Go ahead, Jordan.
the one fault to Derrick Henry's game, and I think we've seen that in his worst games, is when you're able to tackle him low and the entire defense recognizes, hey, we got to get down below his waist.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he's at his worst. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking if
Agreed.
he is playing a defense like in the 70s, he's playing the Steel Curtain, or he's playing late 60s, early 70s Purple People Eaters against
Mhm.
Alan Page. Is he? I don't think he'll be effective against those defenses, which are obviously two of the greatest defenses of all time.
Of course.
But there's that one part of his game that maybe he wouldn't be able to transition pre 60s
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
that's the era that was aiming for every single body part on your body.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Hey, that goes back to what I was saying about people trying to hurt him. It's legal. Like they really could set him up in a way, so you could go low.
high
The next
low.
thing you know, somebody coming high, hit him with
Yeah.
the high low. Everything, it'll be no holds barred on Derrick Henry in the
Yeah.
60s and the 70s, something like that. But the
Yeah.
80s, I still believe he can play. In the 80s, I believe he will be able to flourish in the 80s, the 90s, like you said, Dion going up against him. He's not going to see that. Shoot, even if he's in Dallas and you had Larry Brown and all of them trying to come at it, they still don't want to see none of that
Mhm.
coming at him downhill. And some of the guys, even in the early 2000s, wouldn't want to see it. I don't see Champ Bailey wanting to go make that tackle. I mean, he would, but he's gonna be thinking about it. He's coming at him like that. So,
This
and
is
Derrick
the
Henry, he's a different freak, man, a different freak of nature. Seriously.
they call it a business decision, Chris. Do I
Yeah, that's what they call it.
pull this off
It
or
is what it's called, isn't it?
give him a few more yards and try and push him out of bounds, right? Do I want to be out for 6 weeks with a torn shoulder, or do I just want to steer him? Hey, I don't know.
Hey,
But
man,
anyway, Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
this, this guy, man, we got another. Hey, we back to the Hall of Famers now, man. Hall of Famer, 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All Pro. I'm talking about when this man used to get the ball in his hand. It used to be he used to do magical things, man. 153 total touchdowns. Can I hear it? Can I hear it?
Is that Mr. Barry Sanders?
No, sir, it is not. It's a good guess though. That's a great one, but it is
One
Uh,
not.
of two. It's either Randy Moss or T.O.
Okay, so which one? You got to pick one, sir.
You said 153 touchdowns. That's where I think that was T.O.
yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, that's a good guess, and you would be correct, sir. It is the Terrell Owens. Yes,
T.O.
sir. One of my most favorite wide receivers in history. I know people go for Randy. I really understand it. I do, but for me, it was Terrell Owens. I believe if he would have stayed on track, kept his head on straight, this
Yeah.
man would have passed probably every record Jerry Rice has ever done. I'm
He
talking
could
about
play
over
now.
15,000 yards. He almost had over 16,000 yards. Again, 153 total touchdowns, almost 1,100 reception yards. He had 1,078 to be exact. But yeah, man, this guy, absolute playmaker, difference maker, really just about everywhere he went, except I guess, maybe later in his career, maybe with Cincinnati. But come on now. Eagles TO, Dallas TO, 49ers, TO. Absolute dominant, wide receiver. The Julio Jones before Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what do you say? They hate to love me. That's
Hey,
I
man. I
hate
don't
to
say I love me some me.
I love me. No, in all seriousness, the first receiver not the first, but one of the greatest receivers in the tight end body. Could do anything, could run any route, could block, could do it all. And I really feel like what era could he not play in? Like, have you seen the guy? He's got to be pushing late 40s, and he
Hey,
looks
man.
20. Like if he rips it, he looks like he could play now. Maybe not start, but he could definitely be a backup receiver on somebody's team. That's how good a shape he's in. So I'm going to say T.O. could play in any era. There's nothing he couldn't do. There's no route he wouldn't take, in my opinion. One of the greatest. Jordan, how you feel about it?
If we're talking about T.O. taking away his emotions and then putting him into any era, absolutely. It's adding in, throwing in his, because I love T.O. I do. But
The bipolar-esque.
Yeah. I mean, he just sometimes he has, I mean, it works in today's NFL. Look at all the wide receivers who are saying, give me the ball. I need more touches. Your Odell Beckhams, your Tyreek Hills. I mean, look, even Devontae Adams is doing it recently. Like, there's so many receivers. He would love it in today's NFL. He would absolutely have a ball. And especially if, I mean, you said it, tight end, he had a tight end body. The question is, with how the tight end position has gone into more of receivers, is would he actually be a tight end in today's NFL? Because I think there's a very real possibility. I mean, look, he's playing in, what is it, the fan controlled football league he was playing in last year. He caught a touchdown pass in that. So, I mean, yeah, I think even right now, yeah, he has a shot to be on a roster, because I think he's better than some other terrible wide receivers. I'm talking about you, Nelson Aguilar.
I have a question. I have a question for the panel, right?
What you got?
Do you think that a little bit of narcissism for a receiver is essential to performance? Because you got to be a little crazy to go over the middle blind, not seeing a 250-pound linebacker coming your way and want that ball. Like most of the receivers, most of the receivers that I know, the great ones, had big egos, right? Not that you got to be T.O. Okay, T.O. is definitely an outlier. Like he was just, I mean, but do you feel like you need a little bit of that to be successful in the NFL? Chris, how you feel about it?
I mean, to a degree, I guess you can say that. I mean, to a degree, I believe you can say that, man. But ultimately, man, it goes back to if T.O. could just play football, just worry about just playing football.
Right. Like you could argue, right?
Yeah.
You argue that underdog thought process, that underdog mentality pushed him, right? Pushed him, forced him to be great. That, like, again, Superman, his weakness is kryptonite. His emotions are his strength and his weakness. Would he have done better with control? Absolutely. But who's to say if he didn't have that personality? Should I call it a disorder? Is that strong?
No, I don't think it was a disorder. Honestly, I feel like the emotions motivated him, like you're saying.
Right. If
I
he,
feel like, for coming off of so much and being
yeah,
doubted and all the
yeah,
things he had to overcome, he just used it as fuel. It was almost like how Jordan sometimes would come up with his own theory in his mind about this player, probably been talking noise about him, or this player thinks he's better than him and
mhm,
everything like that. He kind of like formulates some things. Hey man, nobody don't like me, so I'm gonna go out here and perform. It did
right.
make him who he is. I will admit that.
Right. You could argue that Batman will never get to be who he is without a Joker, without a completely opposite personality pushing him to the limit. And I think that's what T.O.'s emotions were to him. It's like, okay, I got to play this game. This dude thinks I'm whatever. You know what I mean? And what happens is,
Hmm.
as you have more success doing it, you tend to do it more. You throw a bunch of money in there and folks coddling you, and some folks can't handle it. But in my humble opinion, I'm not saying everybody has to be T.O. Okay, that'd be ridiculous.
Right.
But I do think you need a bit of an ego, a little bit of arrogance. Um, Jordan, what do you think?
I think it's a great motivator for some players. I do think there's a lot of players, especially in the past 25 years, that didn't necessarily need that. Marvin Harrison, Larry
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, Calvin
Hmm.
Johnson, another quiet but a quiet assassin, AJ
Right.
Green. AJ Green was the quietest person in the world, and then Jalen Ramsey picked the fight with him, and then he started punching him in the face. So,
Right.
but I don't think you necessarily need it, but for some players, it is a great motivator. It is that next level. If I'm sure if Calvin Johnson had that mentality, it's possible he could have been better.
Right.
But some players realize, hey, they're more programmed that I need to win this one on one. I need to win this one on one instead of saying they think you suck. They think you're terrible. Well,
Right.
some
Right.
players just operate differently.
Right.
I don't necessarily think you need that, but I mean, in today's NFL, a lot of players have that mentality. Look at Tyreek Hill, for example, the fastest player, arguably the fastest player in the entire NFL,
Hmm.
but he provides that with himself, saying, "Oh, they think they can stop me. They think they can play a zone coverage and beat me." And that's what makes him so good, is because he has that mentality. If he had the mentality that Calvin Johnson had, I don't think he would necessarily be as dominant in terms of his numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you bring up a good point. Some players need it, some don't. Right. Shannon Sharp was a gregarious personality, always talking, always whatever. His brother Sterling, polar opposite. You know, quiet guy, not really assuming. I'm sorry for the
Right.
call. All my devices are
Oh
ringing.
no, it's all good.
But yeah, I think you said it best. Some players really need that, because Shannon Sharp and Sterling Sharp, same household, polar opposites as far as personalities are concerned. Shannon was going to tell you about it. Shannon was going to beat you. No, Shannon was going to tell you he was going to beat you. Then he was going to beat you. Then he was going to tell you that he told you he was going to beat you.
Gonna beat you.
And then
Yeah,
he was going to talk
that's
about it.
true.
That was Shannon. So yeah,
That is
it's
true.
different strokes for different folks. But go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Hey, no, it's all good. I just want to say, man, fellas, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on. I know Smitty, he had to go run and do some things. I know for me too, I have to get ready for a few other things as well. But this was just, the tip of an iceberg, man. We're actually going to do this again. This was actually better than I thought. This was a whole lot of fun. I just want you guys to, to please allow everybody to let everybody know where they can find you guys. And and we're gonna definitely have to do this again soon too. T will.
Yes, sir. Well, you can see me at One Time for the Fan on YouTube, Facebook. Well, it used to be Twitter, a bunch of other uh, platforms. But you can see us Sunday night at 8, Wednesday night at 8, and Friday mornings at 9. You can
Hmm.
also see me on For My NTL Sports 1, and I am, just like and subscribe to both and get the notifications. I'm kind of, some weeks I'm there, some weeks I'm not, but I still do provide content. But I just want to say, hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Enjoyed it. Jordan, very nice to meet you, sir. And looking forward to doing more podcasts with you. And while we're on the subject of Jordan, go ahead and tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Ultegacy. It's ULTEGACY. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I will still call it Twitter. I haven't changed that on anything. On Threads, that's getting some traction. YouTube, and we got our own website. So you can go to ultegacy.com.
Yay.
You can find, we have our own Hall of Fame section. We have different admins who control different teams. So if you don't want to hear my perspective on the Eagles or the Saints, you don't have to. You want to hear a Steelers fan talk about the Steelers, you can. So just find us anywhere Ultegacy. And thank you guys for this. Was awesome.
Oh yeah, man. We're gonna do this again. Depending on what happens, man, we may try to see if we can do this probably this week, man, because it's still plenty of players we can talk about and plenty of things we can go, plenty of different ways we can go. But first and foremost, thank you to the chat, man. Thank you for everybody who tuned in, who will tune into this. And shout out to each and every last one of you guys. Thank you to Smitty, T Will, and Jordan, for coming on, talking some NFL, pretty much what ifs, And until next time, y'all, be generational, because it's always time to be. Find your peace today. Positive energy always creates elevation, and that's how you find your peace. And I'll never settle for less, because you can always have more with a vision. Until next time, y'all, peace and blessings to you, and we will holler.